I think Minot's community-minded businesses make it magic.
It's Prairie Grit.
Having a strong and progressive medical center like Trinity Health.
I believe Mesa really puts the magic in Minot.
So, there's a lot of misunderstanding about the role of assessors and how they affect the property tax that homeowners pay. When someone hears the term assessor, they seem to think of a scary figure reaching for their wallet. Not so. Assessors don't set tax rates. Assessors don't chase tax dollars. An assessor is interested in fairly determining property values, and they take great pride in it. Property tax is determined by a simple formula. Assessors only affect one of these variables, the value. And they do so with incredible accuracy. Assessors aren't tax collectors or even tax setters. They're just fellow taxpayers, and their primary goal is to make everything fair and equitable. Imagine that you're in a restaurant with two friends. One orders a hot dog, one orders a plate of caviar, and you order a steak. The waiter comes to the table with a total bill of $100, but he doesn't know how much each of you should pay. If everyone paid the same amount, the guy who ordered the caviar might be happy. But what about the guy who ordered the hot dog? Enter assessors. The food is your property. Just like these meals, some people's property is worth more than others. And it's the assessor's job to determine how much each property is worth. That's it. So in the same way the value of these menu items would need to be determined, an assessor places value on properties to ensure fairness and equity. After the assessor determines the value of each property, local governing bodies will set their budgets for the coming year. They set the tax rate in order to produce the dollars needed for their budgets. The value of a property does not affect the amount of property tax needed. The sum total of all those budgets is a set number that has to be divided up among all the property owners. So even if everyone's value was cut in half by the assessors, the tax rate will be raised in order to generate the same amount of tax revenue. The assessors don't determine the taxes you pay. They just determine the values of properties to keep everything as fair and equitable as possible. When you notice a change in your property's assessed value, that change is the result of a never-ending quest for fairness and accuracy. Assessors are graded on their performance, so there is a detailed system to get accurate valuations. First, the assessor looks at similar properties that have sold, their sale prices, and the terms and conditions of each sale. That's the reason your home won't just be compared to the place next door. Studying things like square footage, age, and location helps assessors determine how comparable another property is to yours. Even seemingly small details, like an extra bathroom or finished basement, can result in significant differences in value in two otherwise identical homes. Assessors maintain a thorough database of real estate information to make this process as precise as possible. Changes in value are typically the result of local real estate market sales or major changes to a property. Remodel a kitchen or finish your basement, and your property's value could increase. When you see your home's assessed value, you can rest assured that the number has not been drawn out of a hat, nor generated with anything but equity and accuracy in mind. Long story short, assessors are here to help, not trying to hinder. Their focus is accurate values, not tax collection. The only things an assessor chases are fairness and equity, and they take great pride in it.
All right, we'll call the March 2nd Planning Commission meeting to order. First item on the agenda is call the roll, please.
Barnett. Here. Bauman.
Here.
Demakis.
Here.
Faken.
Here.
Gates. All right.
Here.
Holcoulter. Oh, was that you, Gates? All right. Okay. Holcoulter. Coop. Leiter. Nestle.
Here.
Offerdahl.
Here.
Sessions.
Here.
Sievertson. And Wagonist. All right.
Oh, we have a quorum. Rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, very good. We have a few items on the agenda tonight, so we'll try and get through them here concisely and effectively. First, yes.
If I may, I'd like to make a motion to approve under consent agendas, item number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I'll approve them all with, based on staff finding of fact and conditions.
All right.
So that really basically leaves the landfill and the zoning ordinances for discussion.
So Commissioner Wagner has made a motion to approve agenda items 5 through 10 based upon staff findings of fact and recommendation on a consent agenda.
Mr. Chair.
There's a motion on the floor first. Is there a second?
We'll take those out of questions.
I'll second for discussion purposes.
A second by Commissioner Barnett for discussion purposes. So we're now open for discussion. I'm sorry. There's a second. Now I'll open the floor to discussion. Mr. Van Dyke, did you have something you'd like to add?
I did. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so we've got these scheduled for public hearings, and so then we have to go through each item and open up and close the public hearing and give the public a chance to speak.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, so does that mean, we're here, so we could open that, we'd have that, see if anybody wants to pull any agenda items at this point, can't we?
I believe that would work. We could simply open the floor to comment on those agenda items for purposes of the hearing. Is that what you're saying, John?
Chairman Demakis, I've never seen it done that way as a consent agenda item. They're all public hearing specific, so we'd have to read them out loud, open the public hearing, give a chance for people to speak, and then close the public hearing and make a motion on each individual item.
All right. That really doesn't change anything that we normally do then, from my perspective. Are there any other comments or questions from the commission? Any other discussion? I'm curious going forward, because I believe this could be can be a valuable tool, and perhaps legal counsel can look at it, that we can have an approval agenda, and can there be a portion where the chair or the commission simply opens the forum, asks if there's anybody in the audience that wants to speak on item A, B, C, D, or E. For or against, we have no comment. We can then close it and consider that done as the public hearing. Perhaps, council can look into that as to what exactly is required. Because a lot of times, I know we do run into this. I understand where Commissioner Wagas is coming from. These are boilerplate, simple issues we deal with all the time, and rarely do we have any comment. So I get where he's coming from.
council does that quite often.
Correct, yes.
Can you turn on your microphone, please?
I said I would add to that the council does it quite often, consent items, agenda items, so.
My only input on that, although I like it for the sake of keeping things moving along, is that it's my understanding that council considers some items under consent agendas because the public hearing has already taken place at the planning commission level. So the heavy lifting and considerations have been done, and then the recommendation is made. But if there is a more efficient way, and we can do that and within the confines of the law, then I'm all for exploring those and looking to see if, well, here we go.
Chair and members of the council, what Planner Van Dyke has said is accurate. So there are situations where there is a public hearing and that's conducted here at the Planning Commission level. So then there's not another public hearing that's conducted at the City Council level unless there's something being contested or there's something being appealed or it's required under ordinance. So these situations where there is a public hearing requested, we can look and see what other cities do and see if there's any way to expedite the public hearing, if there's another format. But for these purposes, I would recommend opening each one, at least giving the public an opportunity to comment on these, especially since that would be a new process here for the Planning Commission to adopt. But we can definitely look into that, see if there's anything that is done quicker at other planning commissions across the state. I don't know if the chair or if Commissioner Wagness is familiar with any other planning commissions across the state and if they do adopt a consent agenda type of process for items that are on public hearing. And if you do, let us know which jurisdictions do that. We can definitely look into that.
Very good. I would be curious, just from the sense of whatever would make for the requirement, and I've not read it, and I'm in no position to opine on it, as I'm not. I'm legal counsel, but I'm not the city's legal counsel. What would be sufficient to constitute satisfaction of the requirement? Because again, I've been here for a couple of years. We get a number of the basic rezones where there's no parties present, nobody's objecting. There's almost a way to streamline that process where it's here's your opportunity, here's your forum to come speak. Let's open it up and see if anybody's here, and then perhaps all right, number 5, we're going to address that specifically as we normally do. We have individuals that are here to speak on it or something like that.
Sure, and Chairman, members of the commission, paramount to that would be notice and an opportunity to be heard. So the way that Commissioner Wagness has made the motion to approve all of them on the consent agenda, and then a second, if you were to open the public hearing up on all cases, I guess my concern would be that you would have trouble determining which case is being heard in which order. So if you had somebody that was coming up and they were going to take them out of the order of the agenda, you could have a flow issue.
Sure.
With how those are being presented. So as they're presently being conducted, there will be a review by planning of the matter, and then you'll open it up to the commission, you'll open it up to the public, so people can kind of anticipate when they can come up and deliver their testimony. But if you open it all up at once, we'd want to have some kind of a process set out where people can kind of anticipate, okay, now it's my turn to move forward and deliver my testimony.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I would just respond that the process, as I know it, and it's been practiced here before, if somebody in the public or somebody wants, another commissioner wants to pull an item, then they request it. Of the items I move for consent, they'd ask that one of those items be removed for further discussion individually.
Certainly.
And
but
that takes care of that. Then they're not discussing multiple items at one time.
Certainly. So then the chair would take one each at a time and take a vote on them. Am I following that
No,
correctly?
if somebody in the audience wanted to pull item number 5, they'd request it, and it'd be pulled. And then there would be, it'd be handled separately or individually.
Sure. And then if there's an item that the commission or a member of the public doesn't request to be pulled, they would just be considered as waiving. Whoever wanted to be heard would have waived their right to participate in that
Correct.
public hearing.
Correct.
Okay. I would recommend that just be clearly set forth at the outset. So make sure that that's announced as a part of the process. For purposes of this meeting, though, it would be very new. for what's going on here. So my recommendation may be to follow the process as it's been set out before for this particular meeting. I mean, obviously, the Planning Commission can proceed how it wants to. This is just my advice to you. But the biggest thing is that if it's set up for a public hearing, that the people who are present and they want to deliver testimony do have an opportunity to be heard and an opportunity to come forward and present that.
Very good. Okay. Any further
And-
questions for council or anything else?
Well, and Chair and members of the Planning Commission, in terms of review of information you'd like our office to conduct, do you want us to look into some kind of a procedure for that, or?
I wouldn't object to that at all. I mean, if it can comply, something of that nature where, the commission says, a commissioner brings forth an agenda and wants a consent, and then we simply, state, all right, the following weren't objected to, we'll open a public hearing. If there's anybody that wants to speak on 1, 2, 3, or 4 in that order, we'll just step right through them. If nobody comes up, then I think that would be a relatively quicker process and efficient, where you're not out of order. People understand where it's coming from. It's like, we've got 4 consent agenda items. We're going to take them in that order. Ask for appearances. Seeing none, proceed with a vote on the consent agenda then. Something along those lines. As long as it's in compliance with what's required in terms of the public hearing and things of that nature. I mean, if it's not in compliance with what's required, then we can't do it.
Exactly. And Chairman Demakis, members of the commission, I agree that would definitely be a more efficient process. The biggest thing is just to make sure that you are opening it up for anyone who wants to come and participate in the public hearing and making sure that's safeguarded throughout the process. So I will look into that. I'll discuss that with the city attorney. If there's any issues with it, we'll bring it back to the Planning Commission at the next meeting.
Sounds good to me. Anything further for council from the commissioners?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the item? Since we do have a motion and a second on the floor, we do need to take a vote then, so we'll close discussion and proceed to a vote on the motion.
All right. Barnett?
No.
Bauman?
No.
Demakis?
No.
Faken?
No.
Gates?
No.
Let's see. Nestle?
No.
Offerdahl?
No.
Sessions?
No.
And Wagonist? No. All right. The noes have it.
Good. All right. I appreciate you bringing that up, Todd. I think it's going to lead to a little bit more of an efficient process once we're able to establish a good working order on it. So we'll move on to the meat of the agenda. Excuse me. The first item up for public hearing is Trestle Ridge 5th Edition, a request on an application from Clint Nisham, representing 2 Track Acres LLC, to create a new subdivision from Lot 1, Trestle Ridge 4th. The resulting lots will be known as Lots 1 through 3 of Trestle Ridge 5th Edition. This property is located on the east side of the intersection of 14th Avenue Southwest and 62nd Street Southwest. Turn over staff for the report, please.
All right. So this one is on the southwest side of the city in the 2 mile territorial jurisdiction. More specifically, it's on the southern side of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad Trestle. See on there, it's outlined in yellow, and it's a proposed 3-lot subdivision. So looking at the preliminary plat, you can see is the different sizes of each lot on there. They all happen to be between 20 and 30 acres. And that's all that there is really to say about the preliminary plat. Oh, actually, no, there is also a 65-foot utility access easement in between lots 2 and 3. Looking at the existing zoning for the property is currently zoned Ag, and it does meet the requirements to remain as such. Looking at the topographic map for the area, the topography on these ones it's pretty wild, I guess, lacking a better word to put it as. So lot 2 and 3, there are some buildable areas, but there's not an overabundance. Lot 1 it looks a lot flatter, but as I'll show you in a couple moments, it is actually currently in the floodplain. So I was looking at some of the site photos we took for it. You can see kind of the topography. This is looking southwest at lot 2. Then we're looking at lot 1 from the west. You can kind of see more of the topography and the trestle off in the distance. And then looking at lot 1 from the northwest, you can see topography going back up the hill where it's a significant drop. So moving on to the floodplain map then itself, it is in the Zone A, the 100-year floodplain, and so most of Lot 1 is, and a small portion of Lot 2 is. So for any future development of those lots, that will have to be taken into account. So overall, this area isn't actually represented on the future land use map itself, but it does align with some of the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan, such as land use goal 2, policy 2, which states that we should ensure developments meet the standards specified within the land use plan and official controls, including zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinances and official maps. Since this does meet the minimum requirements for egg zoning based off size, it does align with that policy. And our findings, in fact, this is largely in the staff report and also contains some of the things I just went over. So there's not much more to go on there other than just repetition. Looking at the recommendations, staff does recommend the Planning Commission adopt the findings of fact, recommend approval to City Council subject to the following conditions. The final plat show the current floodplain, that draft covenants detailing the private shared access road shall be provided to the city for review. The final plat shall include adequate easement for the purpose of widening, deepening, sloping, improving, or protecting the stream or drainage course as determined by City Council. There was another condition on here for a stormwater management plan that was withdrawn by the engineering department, so that is no longer a condition. And then the final condition, number 4, is just one of our boilerplate conditions. And that's just that the applicant has 6 months to submit the finalized plat to be recorded, and if they don't within that 6-month time period, the plat will expire. Right, so if you have any any questions on this item, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? All right, hearing none, we will open the public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on behalf of, in favor of the application? Please come forward. Anybody who wishes to speak in opposition? Anybody who wants to add anything in terms of the application? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing then. Turn it over to the commissioners. Is there a motion?
Commissioner.
I'll make a motion to approve based on staff finding of fact and conditions, and then remove condition number 3, stormwater management plan.
We get a motion by Commissioner Wagoness to approve based on findings of fact recommendation and a removal of requirement 3 from our materials. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Sessions. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we will call the roll.
Barnett,
Yes.
Bauman,
Yes.
Demegas, Fagan,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Nestle,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Sessions,
Yes.
and Wagonist. All right.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, subdivision Hacienda Hills 12th edition. It's a application from Ronald LeCount representing DRL Holdings LLP to create a new subdivision from Outlot 38 of Section 19, Township 155 North, Range 82 West. The resulting lots will be known as Lots 1 and 2 of Hacienda Hills 12th edition to the City of Minot. Property is located at 1710 Valley Street. We'll turn it over to staff for the report.
All right. So this one is located on the southeast side of the city this time, at the corner of Valley Street and 13th Street Southeast, and it's actually a quarter of the mile up the road from the grain hopper, if that's a good landmark for it. So, moving on there. So this is the preliminary plat. Once again, you can see the different sizes of both lots, legal descriptions, and there is a portion of land being dedicated to the road right of way. Now, looking at the existing zoning for the properties, it is currently zoned M1 light industrial. It does meet the sizes to remain as such despite the subdivision, so that's, as far as that's concerned, it does meet the bulk requirements. To the south is some R1 zone properties that are out in our 2-mile jurisdiction. Looking at the future land use map, it is currently depicted as being industrial, and it does meet the requirements to remain as such. Now, some site photos. So here we have just a view of the site facing east, and then a photo of the site facing south. So there would be any development on the future on this property, it would require a buffer for anything between the industrial and residential. There is a significant amount of topography there, so that would be something that would have to be kept in mind in the future. Now, so this does align with the future land use map, as I said before. It also does align with some of the goals of the comprehensive plan, such as Land Use Goal 2, Policy 2, which I'll state again just for the record, that it ensures developments meet standards specified within the land use plan and official controls, including zoning ordinance, subdivision ordinance, and official maps. It does align, as I said previously, with the future land use map and the zoning ordinance, so it does align with that goal. It also aligns with land use commercial/industrial goal 1, which states that we should expand, diversify the city's tax base by encouraging new commercial industrial development. This is a subdivision. It's opening up the land for future development down there, which will be expanding the tax base. So it does also align with this goal. Now, the findings of fact, this is, once again, the stuff that I just went over and is in the written staff report that was given to the commissioners. So I'm not going to go over that again. Now, for recommendations, staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt the staff findings of fact and recommend approval to City Council subject to the following conditions. One, that access to Lot 1 shall be off of 13th Street Southeast, and the exact location shall be approved by the City Engineering Department. Connection fees will be required for the future development at a rate of $3,787 per acre. And then, once again, we have our boilerplate recommendation or condition for subdivisions that the applicant has 6 months after it's approved by City Council to get the finalized plat in to be recorded. And if it hasn't recorded within that time, the plat will expire. Right, so if you have any questions for me on this item, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Peter. Are there any questions for city staff on the report? All right, hearing none, we will open the public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in favor on behalf of this application? Anybody who wishes to speak in opposition of the application? Anybody who has any input on the application? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Turn it over to the commissioners for a motion.
Commissioner Baumann, move to approve based on staff recommendations and finding of fact.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Baumann to approve based on findings of fact and recommendation. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Nestal. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, call the roll, please.
Barnett?
Yes.
Baumann?
Yes.
Zemeckis?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Gates?
Yes.
Nestal?
Yes.
Offerdahl?
Yes.
Sessions?
Yes.
And Wagonist. All right.
Very good, motion carries. The next item is a conditional use permit request for medical clinic from Kimberly Berg Hooker, applicant on behalf of Dakota Upright Limited Partnership for conditional use permit for general care clinic on Outlot 55 of Section 26, 155 North, 83 West. This property is located at 1308 20th Avenue South. We'll turn it over to staff for the report.
Thank you, Chairman Dominguez and Commissioners. The clinic will provide health services to include wellness checks, physicals, women's health, skin conditions, screenings, monitoring minor injuries and illnesses. The property is located in the Metro Center, it's just east of 16th Street, southwest and north of the bypass. The existing zoning on the property is C2 general commercial. Just to the north is a residential R1 single-family residential neighborhood. Future land use map designates this area as commercial. It's approximately 2,500 square foot. It'll include a few medical offices and reception area. That's the view from the outside of the approximate location facing northeast. Other than standard requirements that accompany any conditional use permit, staff's recommending that the hours of operation be limited to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then the clinic will be catered to, as I previously explained. And these two conditions align with the letter of intent submitted by the applicant. And these are, the reason behind these is just because we want to ensure that we want to mitigate any noise which would be created and reasonably associated with emergent care. So this is for non-emergent care. So just to address any issues with that residential neighborhood to the north that could result from emergent care. So the findings of fact effectively explain what's in the staff report provided to you last week and what I've just addressed tonight. And the recommendation is to approve, subject to those conditions that I just went over. And I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, John. Any questions for staff? All right, hearing none, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody present who wishes to speak on behalf of the application? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Anybody with anything to add? All right, seeing none, we'll close public hearing, turn it over to the commission. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Sessions. Is there a second?
Second, Barnett.
Second from Commissioner Barnett. Any discussion?
Are we including the conditions in the motion?
Commissioner Sessions, are you including the conditions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. The second still stand, Commissioner Barnett?
Yes, it does.
Very good. Okay. Any further question or any further discussion? All right, hearing none, call the roll, please.
Barnett,
Yes.
Bauman,
Yes.
Demakis,
Yes.
Faken,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Nestle,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Sessions,
Yes.
and Wagonist.
Yes.
All right.
Very good. Motion carries. Next up, we have a subdivision zoning district change and variance in the, Skoldal? Is that how we say that, John?
I believe it's Skudal, Chairman Demakis.
Thank you. This is a hearing. We have a request on an application from Randy Wergler to create a new subdivision from Outlot 3, Section 17, Township 155 North, Range 83 West. The resulting lots will be known as lots 1 and 2. In addition, the owner is requesting a zoning district change from AG, agricultural, to RA, agricultural residential for lot 1, and AG, agriculture, to R1, single family for lot 2. Further, the owner is requesting a variance to the minimum lot size requirement for lot 2 to be reduced to 1 acre. The properties are located at 4710 County Road 15 West. I'll turn it over to staff for the report.
Thank you, Chairman Demakis. Commissioners. All right, so here's the subject property as depicted on our city and county GIS maps. The legal description actually describes this layout, and as you can see, the property boundary between the two lots there bisects the existing dwelling on site. So this application is effectively before you to correct an error that's been ongoing for decades. Here's a preliminary plat. Again, this reflects what GIS shows at the county and city level. One of the lots is 2 acres and would be zoned to residential agriculture. And lot 2 would be R1 single-family residential. R1 single-family residential requires a 2-acre minimum. However, I'm just going to stick on task here. Future land use, there is no designation. The closest designation would be that low-density residential. It aligns with our housing goal number 1. And as I previously mentioned, with regard to that, the 1 acre or the 2 acre requirement, there's actually 27 other properties in the immediate vicinity that are below that 2 acre minimum threshold. So the character of the area is this sub 2 acre development, R1. So this lot 2 would be not out of character with the area. Also keep in mind that the existing situation is 2 lots. The resulting situation is 2 lots. It's just a reconfiguration. So this is just a property boundary adjustments. We're cleaning up what would be a mess. So staff is recommending approval, subject to probably the primary condition to take note of is that the access options are going to be subject to approval of the appropriate entity. So Harrison Township maintains jurisdiction over 10th Avenue Northwest, and then Ward County would maintain jurisdiction over County Road 15. It's shown as 4th Avenue Northwest on the map. So depending on, the applicant is going to have to work with either the township or the county to determine their appropriate access. The findings of fact summarize what was just discussed tonight and in the staff report provided last week. And the recommendation is to approve the preliminary plat, the variance for the lot size reduction on lot 2, and then a zoning map amendment from AG to RA on lot 1 and R1 single-family residential district on lot 2, subject to the condition I just mentioned. And the boilerplate language. So that's all. I'll stand for questions.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Any questions from the commission for staff?
Chairman, I got a question for the principal planner.
Go ahead.
I'm curious, so we're saying lot 2 is going to be buildable, and are there any concerns from like sewer, that type of thing, on a 1 acre lot?
Thank you, Chairman Dominguez, Commissioner Wiganest. We invited First District Health to a DRT back in late fall. So we don't have concerns. Our 2 acre is I would say a rule of thumb more than a hard rule. Obviously, there's plenty of lots in that area that have and are functioning on septic system with much smaller lots. Ultimately, it will be up to First District Health to evaluate effectively the soils and determine if the absorption rate is adequate to support a 1 acre lot. It appears, based on all the other lots in the area, that there should be no problem, and so staff has no concerns.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions for staff? All right, hearing none, then we will proceed with the public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on behalf of the application? Anybody who wishes to speak in opposition? Anybody who has any opinion to add? All right, the public hearing is closed. We'll turn it over to the commissioners. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve based on staff finding of fact and recommendations.
Motion by Commissioner Wagner to approve based on staff findings of fact and recommendation. Is there a second?
Commissioner Bauman, second.
Second from Commissioner Bauman. Any discussion? Very well. Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Barnett?
Yes.
Bauman?
Yes.
Dominguez?
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Nestle,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Sessions,
Yes.
and Wagonist. All right.
Carries. The next item is subdivision and zoning district change, a future land use map amendment. A request on an application from Stacy Abel, representing Ready Builders 2 LLC, to create a new subdivision from Lot 3, Galusha Ranch addition to the city of Minot, and an unplatted portion of the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter, Section 6, Township 154 North, Range 82 West. The resulting lot will be known as Galusha Ranch Second Edition. In addition, the owner is requesting a zoning district change from Ag AG to RA Agricultural Residential, and a land use map amendment from a mix of very low density residential and low density residential to solely very low density residential. Property is located at the intersection of 24th Street Southeast and 43rd Avenue Southeast. I'll turn it over to staff for the report.
All right, thank you, Chairman Demakis. So these properties, this is more general kind of location ideas, located directly south of the Minot Country Club, and it directly borders the golf course itself. So on this map, you can see the different subject properties. There's going to be 11 of them involved with this as part of the subdivision, and you can also see the 300-foot notification area. Now, this is the preliminary plot. So a lot of that information is on here as well, including the lot sizes, which goes from 2 acres, so I believe it's 13 acres there. And it will also have an access, a sanitary sewer access and cart path easement that runs through portions of the property. Now, looking at some of the site photos for this, this is what you can find out there right now. It's essentially just open North Dakota prairie. It's pretty, but otherwise not much to look at as far as site photos go. Now, looking at the existing zoning for the property, so it's currently shown outlined in blue on there, that it's zoned as ag currently. The applicant would like to have it changed to RA, which is similar to what is, actually it is exactly what it is for the current Galusha first edition that is to the south. And it does meet those requirements based off the 2-acre minimum for RA, which everything does meet, as I previously discussed. Looking at the future land use map, this area is a bit of a hodgepodge. And half of the proposed subdivision is currently very low density residential. Half of it is low density residential. The map doesn't quite extend all the way out to cover this entire area, but it does cover the proposed subdivision. And staff had recommended to the applicant that they go to very low density residential as part of this, because it is our lowest density designation that we have. The overall density requirements for it is 2 to 3 units per acre, which can't be met in this subdivision, but is the lowest density designation that we have. Now, so with it being able to meet some of the requirements in the future land use map by going to just one designation rather than having properties split, it does also meet some of our housing goals, such as housing goal 1, which is to ensure housing development is compatible with existing adjacent land uses while providing accessibility, public infrastructure, key community features, and natural amenities. They do have a cart path easement that goes right on the golf course. That's a pretty good amenity of access to right there. So that does satisfy that goal. And it also satisfies land use goal 2, policy 2, which is to ensure it meets the standards specified within the land use plan, official controls, zoning or subdivision ordinances, and official maps. It, like as I mentioned previously, it does meet the minimum standards we have for RA zoning, so it does also satisfy this goal. The findings of fact, it's once again just the report I went over orally and the staff reports that you have that are written. So I won't be going any further into that. Going off the recommendation, so city staff recommends you go off the recommendations that are actually going to be on the screen rather than just what is in the staff report. There was an additional recommendation for a condition that came from the Parks District that wasn't included in there. And that will be one of the later ones that's not on the screen currently. So our first condition is An amendment to the Glacier Ranch Developers Agreement is required prior to the recording of the plat. The second one is that the final plat shall show the current floodplain. Stormwater management plan is required for future development in this area. The roadways are to be initially gravel, with paving to take place in the future. 15-foot utility and trail easement shall be placed along the western portion of 23rd Street, connecting with the cart path easement. That's the one that came from the Parks District, I believe. C6 is the developer shall pay a fee of $381 per lot to the city at Minot time building permit issuance. This one actually also came from the Parks Department. And the final plat shall include adequate easement for the purpose of widening, deepening, sloping, improving, or protecting stream or a drainage course as determined by the city engineer. There's a coulee that runs through the area, so we have to make sure that's protected. And then we have our normal boilerplate, so if the applicant doesn't get it submitted for its final plat within 6 months, it will expire. Right, if you have any questions for me at all on this item, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions for staff on this agenda item?
Mr. Chairman, I got a question, just for clarification. You're adding your number 6. Can we go back to it?
Sure. Yeah.
381 per lot.
Yep, and that is a general developing fee that's put out by the Parks Department.
That's the recommendation we're adding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions for staff? Okay. All right. We will open the public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on behalf of the application? Anybody who wishes to speak in opposition? Anybody with any input? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, turn it over to the commissioners. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve based on staff finding of fact recommendation, and I'll add a recommendation identified as number 6 on the presentation for the developer to pay a fee of $381 a lot to the city of Minot as the building permits are issued.
Very good. We have a motion by Commissioner Wagoness to approve based on findings of fact or recommendation with the addition of the developer fee payment as outlined in the report. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Offerdahl. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Barnett,
Yes.
Bauman,
Yes.
Demakis,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Nestle,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Sessions,
Yes.
and Wagonist. All right.
Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is a conditional use permit, outdoor display, open storage, and hazardous material storage. It's a request on behalf of Chris Cannery representing STNL Minot LLC, on behalf of John Coughlin, for a conditional use permit for an outdoor display of merchandise, open storage, and hazardous material storage on the east side of Block 4, Livingston 7th Edition, more specifically known as Proposed Lot 2, Livingston's 9th Edition. So the property is located along 21st Avenue Southeast, south of 905 21st Avenue Southeast. We will turn it over to staff for the report.
Chairman Demakis, Commissioners. So the subject property is located between 6th Street Southeast and 13th Street Southeast along the south side of 21st Avenue Southeast. And just as a reminder, we evaluated this plat at last month's meeting, so it should be somewhat familiar. The zoning is C2 General Commercial. The use of retail stores is a permitted use in C2. The open display of merchandise, the outdoor storage of materials, and storage of hazardous materials are conditionally permitted uses in C2. The future land use map designates this area as commercial. Some site photos. So this is going to be similar to other developments that Tractor Supply has produced across the country, and their site plan largely mimics this. So this is just an example. It's the outdoor display, which would be along the northern facade. Here's an example of an outdoor display that would be abutting 21st Avenue Northeast. It's typically what their open storage areas look like. And I think we've all seen a propane tank before, so that's what their propane tanks look like. So the site plan was provided. I believe it's Exhibit 5 of the staff report. So again, the layout is very similar to the images provided. Building design, landscaping, and all parking requirements will still be required if this conditional use permits are issued. So staff finds the application aligns with the standards and considerations required by the code for an issuance of a conditional use permit when subject to conditions, which I'll go over in greater detail in the recommendations. Findings of fact effectively summarize what I've just discussed and what's contained in the staff report. So the recommendation. So staff's recommending approval. Again, this is 3 conditions, so there's or 3 conditional use permits, so this is why there's a few extra conditions that we've put on the property, just due to the quantity of the number of conditional use permits in one application. So I want to note a change. The first item, A, the open display areas are limited to 2 locations as follows, so that would be along 21st. The condition would limit it to the square footage as provided in the site plan that came along with the application. There is an edit, so up to 3,958 square foot along the front of the building. So staff miscalculated, left out a specific area that was denoted on the site plan that came along with the application, so that would just be a correction. So any adoption of the recommendations and conditions would just be based on the presentation tonight, not necessarily the ones contained in the staff report. So any expansion of the display area would have to come back for a modification, come back before Planning Commission. If the open display areas are used for all-terrain vehicles, it's possible. They do sell those online. I'm not sure if they intend to sell them here, and might not, but just for the sake of making sure no outside repair maintenance is going on, which I don't believe they provide those services, and no auctions shall be permitted. Don't believe, again, that they provide those services, but better to have a condition than not have it. And then all open storage shall be 100% screened. This is a condition that's just included within our code. Staff did not create this condition. Open storage of materials shall not exceed the height of the screening provided, again, contained within the code. All open storage shall be paved with concrete or bituminous surface, again, contained within the code. The open display areas and open storage areas are subject to all other city standards, including but not limited to landscaping, obscuration, and overall site design. That goes without saying. I'm including it just in case there's any confusion whatsoever, but the conditional use permit is specifically still needs to comply with all other standards that are not being addressed through the conditional use permit. Standard language in H would be the hazardous material. I'm declaring it to be propane, which is what's applied for. I'm not going to read the rest of that. But effectively that identifies when it's a hazardous material based on the quantity and the type of material. And then any change in ownership requires renewal of the hazardous materials conditional use permit. That's required in code. This is standard language. It says any amendment would have to come back before Planning Commission. If substantial construction hasn't taken place within a year, then the conditional use permit would expire or be void. So that would be it. So I will stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff on the report? John, can you be clear again on the square footage change there on the first one, so I have it in my head correctly?
I think it's 3,958.
Along the front of the store, in addition to along 21st Avenue, right?
This would be 3,958 square foot area at the front of the building. That's what's being amended from what's based in the staff report.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Any other questions from the rest of the commission? Okay, hearing none, we will open the public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on behalf of this agenda item? Please come forward, sign in, give us your name.
Hello, I'm Sean Weeks with Ackerman Esfold representing the applicant. And Mr. Van Dyke summarized everything well on the project. There's one point of consideration that I would ask both staff and the commission. The fenced display area that's east of the building and adjoining, that's being considered by staff as an open storage area, and the business model that TSC has, Tractor Supply, is they want the contents of that area is intended to be visible. So I think they're of the opinion that would be considered a display area versus a storage area, and as such that the required screening could be eliminated. So I wonder if that's something that we might be able to consider with this application. I know it's something that the applicant would like to see and has asked me to make comment and see if we can address it.
Mr. Chairman, can we get a little further clarification? Maybe the picture, the next slide. You said east of the building, east
Yes,
side
sir.
of the building. Can we look at the east side, rather than the floor or the site plan? Can we look at the building itself? Exhibit 6.
So that was an image of the display area.
There. Where are we talking about here?
So you see the concrete area adjoining?
That's the west side?
Yep. Well, that in this particular, it'll be reversed. It'll be a mirror image, but that is the area, the concrete surface, and it's fenced with I believe, an 8-foot-high security fence. But again, what their intent is to have everything that's on the exterior of the building to be visible for purposes of sale.
So is it a storage area or isn't it?
Well, I believe the applicant would look at it as a display area. We're kind of in a little bit of a semantics battle, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, they're two different things. John, how is that presented to you, as storage or as display?
Chairman Dominguez, staff's opinion that it is an open storage area.
What are the requirements in terms of then treating that as display in purposes of this area? Are we under a footage cap or something like that to treat that as display versus storage?
Chairman Dominguez, there's no cap necessarily. It's more just having a definition specifically related to open storage. If you give me just a minute, I'll pull up the definition.
Sure.
Or how it's.
Mr. Chairman, while he's pulling that up, may I ask another question?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm just curious, so it's an 8-foot fence around this display area, sales area, is that what you said?
correct. It's got a drive-through or a central lane for a vehicle to go through, and it's gated on each end.
So it's fenced, it's just a matter of sliding it or not? As a
Correct, and I think access to it may be controlled through the building as well. So you would, inside of the building, if you were interested in viewing items there, you would step into the fence displayed area.
So, Chairman Dominguez, if you're ready for me to respond. So, yeah. So how it's how it's worded is, so open storage lots of products manufactured on site or made available for sale to the public for permitted or conditional uses in the C2 districts are subject to the following requirements. And one of them is 100% screened. It's the conditions that I included. So this would be similar to how we treat garden centers. If you think about Menards, they've got a large open area that's at least largely obscured by their wooden fence, and so that's how we've treated this.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So would this be changing the screening requirements?
Correct. That's what we would like you to consider. The fencing would not change. The security nature of the fence would still need to be there, but it would not be an opaque fence, solid fence. It's a visual impediment.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for staff.
Go ahead, yeah.
Do you have can we see the map of the surrounding existing commercial buildings in that area? And can you name them? Can you let me know what those are? The two on the...
Chairman DeMakis, Commissioner Sessions, no, I cannot.
So there's Trinity has a facility to the east, right off 13th and
I'm sorry,
21st.
this was for staff, not...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you know what's there, John?
Mr. Chairman, I can answer the question.
Go ahead.
Trinity Health has a clinic to the east of the site. There's the building there to the east, near 13th Street Southeast, is a medical clinic.
And
And
Mr.
the
Chairman, if I may, I'll add, I think it's Sanford Clinic, walk-in clinic, and I don't remember the name of the other business that's right next to it.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm just wondering about it fitting into the overall, what is existing there, and if the screening is changing, I believe that's maybe another opportunity for the existing commercial businesses need to review that again, if that property is not going to be screened, or that area.
Well, and if I may, and a question for you, John, is we're treating this as outdoor storage as it was applied for, and a requirement of that is screening. It would then require a variance to remove that, would it not? And that would be separate and distinct from what is before us right now, is it?
Chairman DeMakis, that's correct. So if they did apply for a variance to that conditional use standard for that specific use, then it would be noticed to all the neighboring property owners again, and that it would be brought back before this commission to evaluate. So that would be their chance to comment.
Thank you for clearing that up. Any further questions on
Mr.
behalf?
Chairman, I'll just a quick, one more example. Exhibit 6, down towards the bottom of the slide, it says Figure 2 open storage area, so it's been identified as a storage area.
Yes.
In our presentation.
Thank you. Any further questions for the applicant's representative?
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks, Sean. If we have anything further, we'll let you know.
Thank you.
Anybody wish to speak in opposition of the application or in favor? Okay, seeing no, oh,
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yes.
This is Dave Howitz, who I'm also representing STNL Minot LLC. I'm the development project manager, and Sean and I have been working on this project together. We appreciate the staff and the Planning Commission's attention to this issue. I've read the code several times, had many discussions with Sean about it. You know, Tractor Supply considers this their fenced outdoor display area. And I personally developed hundreds of these stores over the last 25 years, and I have a lot of experience going before boards like this and talking about the differences between storage and display. And I'm certainly not arguing that your code is not written clearly. It is written clearly. And if opaque screening is required for this area, we'll certainly respect what the code's intent is, and we will comply with that. And I don't wish to go through the variance process for something of this nature and take up more of the city staff and more of the city commission's time. My main point that I'd like the commission to consider is that sometimes a more of a decorative fence across the front looks more pleasing than the chain link fence, and it looks more pleasing to the eye than an opaque fence. That can tend to be a little bit stark. If you want to screen it from view from 21st Avenue, we will comply and put up an opaque fence. If you're willing to consider a more decorative element that is transparent, that's what we would prefer. But again, I don't wish to waste the committee or the staff's time on this to go through a variance process. If you want an opaque fence, we'll definitely put it up. And I wanted to be clear and be on the record of that. The city has been great. We've had a store operating there for many, many years. Minot is actually the home of the very first Tractor Supply Company store, the first of over 2,000. So, you know, being in the city means a lot to us, and we're very excited about this store, and we don't want to derail it and create any controversy. So that's, you know, if you all would want us to put up a decorative ornamental aluminum fence, which we've done in many other places around the country, we'd be happy to do that. If you want an opaque fence, we'll put up an opaque fence, and we won't challenge this any further.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Do any of the commissioners have any questions? All right. The public hearing is still open. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak before I close the public hearing? All right. The public hearing is now closed. I'll turn it over to the commission for its bidding.
I'll make a motion to approve based on staff finding of fact and recommendations. I will make note of the correction on recommendation number 2, item A, where it states the new statement is 3,958 square feet. So it's correcting that square footage.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor from Commissioner Wagner.
I'll just add, and as presented tonight.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. To approve based on staff finding fact recommendation and with the amendment to condition 2A as presented this evening. Is there a second?
Commissioner Bauman, I'll second that.
Second from Commissioner Bauman. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Call the roll, please.
Barnett?
Yes.
Bauman?
Yes.
Tamakis?
Yes.
Faken?
Yes.
Gates?
Yes.
Nestle?
Yes.
Offerdahl?
Yes.
Sessions
Yes.
and Wagonist.
Yes.
All right.
Motion carries. The next item is a master plan amendment and variance. It's a hearing on request from Jason Sorensen, Assistant Public Works Director, regarding the master plan amendment of the city landfill site to designate alternatives for a proposed transfer facility. Variance design standards related to the on-site road improvements, trash enclosure, obstruction requirements, and landscaping requirements surrounding the immediate location of the transfer facility is also being requested. There's no change to the broader vegetation buffer along the south boundary near 37th Avenue. The master plan encompasses the following properties: south half southwest quarter, south half north half southwest quarter, southwest quarter southeast quarter less than north 330 feet and less Sorensen's 4th edition, all in section 28 of Township 155, range 83 west. Less County Road right-of-way and Sorensen's 4th edition lots 1 through 3, 5, 6, and outlot 18 of section 28, 155-83, outlot 20 of section 28, 155-83. The address for the landfill is 3500 19th Avenue Southwest. We'll turn it over to staff for the report.
Thank you for that, Chairman Demakis. So what Chairman Demakis just explained was this property here. This is the landfill site, so it's a number of different properties. The master plan, obviously this is the landfill. This is all the property owned by the city, not necessarily representative of the landfill development area. It's probably better defined by the zoning on the property. So all those little properties, or all those numerous properties, it's the master plan, the development, the future development is limited to that area that is currently zone P, public zone. Existing zoning in the area is a mix of agricultural, residential, and industrial. Future land use shows this as a public, semi-public use, and then surrounded by general mixed use, M1 industrial, and there's some high-density residential. Now, this is the adopted master plan. This was presented to Planning Commission for a recommendation, and City Council approved this master plan in early 2019. So 2 alternatives are being presented to address potential safety concerns with the location of the transfer facility, as shown on this map. That'd be the southernmost access onto County Road 14/37th Avenue Southwest. So if you see that building and then that scale and the approach location, it's largely the subject of tonight's discussion. So relocating it further to the south, again, the building, which would be the transfer facility for the recycling transfer facility, and the scale, and adjusting the location of the approach will add some safety to the development as a whole. So here's alternate 1, and I'm going to go back and forth between these two just to highlight what is changing. And first, if you could bring your eyes to the northern central part of it. So largely everything is staying the same. The area in red is inert waste disposal expansion previously. So this is what's adopted. Here's what's being proposed. So it's actually a reduction in the northern area. So now it's 4 plus or minus acres. Previously it was quite a bit more than that. Okay, and then there's, as you can see in the bottom left, so I'll go back and forth again if you just want to focus on the transfer facility and the scale house. In alternate 1, it's in the southwest of the property. Again, originally it's over here, tucked up closer to this intersection. A lot of the reasoning to moving it further south is to keep the public, which would be interacting with this transfer facility, from being closer on site and interacting with the activities of the landfill that are more intense. So again, moving it further to the southwest, and previously it's here. So I'm going to show you alternate number 2. It's very similar to the adopted, but it's just moved. The transfer facility is moved further to the south along with the scale house. What you also see here is some screening that's included on both. The alternate 1, that's that orange kind of hash along the south perimeter and southeast perimeter. That was discussed at length at the Planning Commission meeting. The buffering requirements were required. I'm not sure if a master plan was ever updated to include that, but nonetheless, it is now there as it was discussed previously. And staff is recommending in either scenario, alternate 1 or alternate 2, here they are side by side, but in either scenario, that vegetative buffer and screening would be extended to the southwest boundary and to the western boundary. So as far as the variance is being requested, so for any development on this site, so for the recycling transfer facility and scale, any habitable structure effectively that requires parking requires paving going from the roadway, so it'd be the apron, the driveway, and parking spaces surrounding the structure itself. Screening of on-site trash enclosures, so requesting a variance from the trash enclosures, and then also landscaping requirements. So as far as going over each of these, so staff supportive of varying all of these requirements. First and foremost, just to go over and give some logic behind why this site warrants a variance. The use is more similar to a M2 heavy industrial use rather than just a typical C2 general commercial use. C2 general commercial standards apply to all public zones. In this case, it's really not warranted. There was a variance granted to another plan that would have been evaluated by this commission. And that was in Trinity Health 3rd Edition. So in that case, this commission determined that the gravel surface would be more suitable for heavy vehicles that they needed to use to deliver and move the transformer. Probably a comparable inverse use would be a gravel pit. So rather than driving and pulling dirt out of the ground, instead this is being filled. And so heavy trucks are common, and it's nonsensical to pave roads that are going to be destroyed continuously on a day-to-day basis. Screening of on-site trash enclosures, the site is effectively a large trash receptacle. Having to do specific trash enclosures for each trash receptacle on site related to the recycling transfer facility is, again, nonsensical. Also, this is coupled with the fact that there's a vegetative buffer requirement on the master plan. That's a unique to this site. Most sites do not have a large vegetative buffer that would encompass the entire south side of a development, and therefore additional, say, landscaping and screening for trash enclosures is unnecessary. So the finding of facts, summarize what was just gone over and included in your staff report. I'll go over the recommendation. So the staff recommends approval. I did have a couple conditions. I think it prudent to include a footnote for each alternate that states that the locations of the transfer facility, scale house, perimeter fence, screening, sedimentation pond, and interim and future roadways are shown as an illustration and represent a close approximation of the final design. Now, this is not a survey. It's a master plan document, so it will be very close, but some minor adjustments one way or another will be necessary, I'm sure, once they get into full design. The master plan will be modified to accommodate up to 150-foot setback for fencing and trees. This is a requirement per the county. The master plan is required to amend the vegetative buffer to include the area highlighted in Exhibit 4. And then the master plan is required to denote that 2 to 3 tree rows will be utilized for the vegetative buffer. And that is all staff has. I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for staff? All right. Thank you. Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on behalf of the application? Come on forward, sign in, give us your name, please.
Good evening. I'm Jason Sorensen. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director for the City of Minot. I think Mr. Van Dyke summed the application up fairly well, and I would just stand for any questions if there are any.
Very good. Any questions? All right. I don't think we have any right now. We'll let you know.
Excellent.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else who wishes to speak on behalf of the application? Anybody wish to speak against the application? Come on up.
Just
Give us
Hi.
your name, please.
Ron Patton, 1725 33rd Street.
Thank you, sir.
I like the plans and everything. I'm just kind of concerned with the buffer zones. I don't like the master plan, but the 1 or 2, we have, speaking for me and my neighbors, that along the residential areas where they're going to be expanding to the north, if there would be some kind of buffer zones so we don't end up with blowing trash like's been happening with our high winds and stuff lately. Like the alternate 1 where they don't expand so far north is what we would like to see, or the 2. And then we'd like a buffer zone along that north area so that, we don't get debris and trash into our residential houses. And other than that, looks all good.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it. Is there anybody else who wishes to add anything further? Okay, hearing none, we will close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission.
This is Commissioner Bauman. I'm actually wondering if I can ask a question of Mr. Sorensen.
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Sorensen, just curious, with the request about creating a stronger, for lack of a better word, buffer zone on the north edge of the expansion, is that something that Public Works could do?
Chairman Demakis, Commissioner Bauman, we could certainly look at it. Once you get over in that whole area, it's basically fenced off right now. We have a perimeter fence that runs through there. Some of that terrain kind of drops off to the north. I'd have to look and see if there's any reasons why it could or couldn't be done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anything further, Commissioner Bauman?
Nope.
Very good. Any other thoughts? Is there a motion? Sorry.
Motion to approve based on staff finding of fact recommendations.
Motion by Commissioner Wagness to approve based on findings of facts and recommendations. Is there a second?
Second, Barnett.
Second by Commissioner Barnett. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we will call the roll, please.
Barnett?
Yes.
Bauman?
Yes.
Demakis?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Gates?
Yes.
Nestle?
Yes.
Offerdahl?
Yes.
Sessions?
Yes.
And Wagonist.
Yes.
All right.
Motion carries. The next item is the zoning ordinance text amendment. John, I am just going to turn that over to you right now.
Actually, if you want to introduce it, John,
Brian.
then I'll take it from there.
Yep, absolutely. You want me to read this lengthy one?
Well, I just thought, I didn't realize which one of you were going to handle it. I thought I'd just let you guys
Okay.
put it up and,
Well, I'm
Put it
just
on
going to
the
go
floor.
ahead and rehand it right on over to Brian.
Okay.
So this is the zoning ordinance text amendment that's been being worked on for a while. This would be revising or adopting potentially or providing a recommendation for a new ordinance. So I think Brian is here to touch on a brief survey of everything. It is a 200-plus page document, obviously, so we're not going to spend too much time going over every single page, but we'll try to address the highlights and then also address a few things that really you've already come before this commission or really didn't change that much at all. So I'm going to just be steering the ship, and Brian's going to be talking.
sounds good.
Well, thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. The Zoning Ordinance Steering Committee is a committee that has been in place for about roughly 15 to 20 years. I've found minutes to go back to the early 2000s on this committee. Before I start going into the ordinance and presenting all the changes that have been made, I'd like to, first of all, acknowledge and thank everyone who've spent their personal time working on this. This committee was not compensated, just like the Planning Commission. So again, we thank everyone here for volunteering their time, whether it's attending these public hearings or sitting down every other Wednesday morning for 2 years and going through the zoning ordinance and updating it. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge and thank our co-chairman, Raleigh Ackerman, who's here this evening. Raleigh has been a member of this committee for a very long time. I've enjoyed working with Raleigh on this project. I'd say we've done a very good job of steering the ship and getting us to this point so far. I'd like to also acknowledge our Commissioner, Tim Bauman, who's on Teams tonight. He's not here, but he's participating over Teams. And Tim's done a great job on the committee as well. Tyler Neither, our former Planning Commission chairman from a couple of years ago, representing the financial sector, is also on the committee, along with Gloria Larsgaard, a local architect. Rustin Rodelick, our former city engineer, is in the audience tonight. Thank you, Rustin, for all of your help throughout the last couple of years on this project. Minot Area Builders, Pat Grainer was their representative for most of this project. Very recently, Pat Bailey, who is here this evening. Thank you, Pat, for attending. He attended the last meeting, so he's officially now representing MAB on the steering committee. They've been very helpful throughout the process. And lastly, I'd like to acknowledge and thank former Alderman Josh Wolski and current Alderman Tom Ross for their work. Josh stepped down, obviously, after he did not run for re-election for the council. However, he still has attended several meetings afterwards anyhow, so he's been very helpful, and I appreciate his work on the committee, along with Mr. Ross, Alderman Ross, who has done a good job as well. He's attended just about every meeting since he was elected to the council. I also would like to acknowledge and thank the work of several city departments and our consultant as well. Obviously, the planning department, I'd like to thank former principal planner Lance Lang, who's now retired. He probably was involved with at least the first 75–80% of this project, and he was there from the very beginning. We had 38 total meetings going through this ordinance. I was there for the final 35, so I wasn't there at the very beginning, but Lance was there at the very beginning. I'd like to thank Lance for his efforts. And our current principal planner, John Van Dyke, who kind of picked up the ball after Lance left and has done a great job in editing the plan and getting it ready for public hearing. Also, I'd like to thank Peter Baumgartner, our assistant planner, for the work he's done since he started here as well. He's been very helpful at researching items that we've needed help on. And of course, my planning assistant and clerk, Glinda Sorensen, for handling all the meeting minutes, sending out the meeting invitations to our committee. She's done an excellent job in keeping us on track and getting us to this point. I'd like to thank our engineering staff. Emily Hittle is here tonight, along with Lance Meyer. They've attended virtually every meeting that we've had since the very beginning. They've been very helpful, and I appreciate their efforts. Our inspection staff, our building official, Luke Tillema, I'd like to thank him. He attended a few meetings, especially on the sign code. He was there or the sign code activities. Our city attorney's office, Stephanie's here. Stephanie, thank you very much for all your work and keeping us on track and making sure we're not adopting unconstitutional provisions in our ordinance. And she's done a lot of research for us, and she attended several of our meetings, and we appreciate your efforts, Stephanie. Minot Airport staff, they were involved with the chapter on telecommunication facilities and towers. Obviously, towers don't go really well with airports. They don't mix very well, so they were helpful in developing that chapter, along with Minot Air Force Base. Their planner attended the meetings on the towers as well. And then last, I'd like to thank our consultant, SRF. Scott Harmstead was the project manager. He's based out of Bismarck, and he probably drove up here, attended at least 25 of the 38 meetings that we had. Tim Magnuson and Dave Sweeney, they're based in Fargo, and they participated over the phone. They did an excellent job for us. I think when you look at the new ordinance compared to the ordinance we have today, the new ordinance is easier to read. It has more graphics and charts and tables. I think it would be much easier for the layperson to look at it and understand what is expected of them if they ever wanted to develop property within our city. Next slide, please. So I'd like to get into the major changes that were made. First of all, probably the biggest change that we made was we changed how land uses are displayed in the ordinance. In the old ordinance, every land use was under a certain section, and you had to search through that section to see if that use was in there, and if it wasn't in that chapter, you had to go to the next chapter to look for where I wanted to cite a single-family subdivision, or if I wanted to open a restaurant, what zoning districts are they allowed in? Well, under the new format, we've kind of gotten rid of that, and we've added a land use table that's very easy to interpret. So, for example, if you wanted to open an auto repair shop, you'd find auto repair on there. Everything in green with the P in it, it has is a permitted use. And you can get a building permit to put an auto repair shop in a C2 zone, an M1 zone, or an M2 zone. The yellow cells with the C in them have their conditional uses. So if you wanted to build an auto repair in a I1 or a public zone, you need a conditional use permit in those zones. So it's much easier to go through the land use table and find the uses that you're looking for. Whether you have a bare piece of land and it was zoned, C1, you can go through it and decide, oh, these are the uses I can build here. Or if you're wanting to build a restaurant, you can go to look at the restaurant category. It's so much easier to go through than the previous ordinance. Next slide. We've reorganized the chapters. The old format, every zoning district had its own chapter. Under the new format, we've changed that where everything's under articles. So, for example, all the different zoning districts are still under chapters, but they're all under one article, Article 2. And if you go to the next slide, then you get into all of our standards for development, and all specific standards for specific uses and districts are in Article 4. Our sign regulations are in Article 5. Our parking and loading standards are in Article 6, and so on. We made several changes to the parking requirements. This is what the current ordinance looks like. Basically, you find the land use that you're wanting to assign to a building permit, and then you had just a minimum number of spaces. There wasn't a whole lot of flexibility there for staff. That was what the applicant had to follow. If they couldn't meet that, they could apply for a variance. We've added some more features to our parking ordinance. I think it makes it a little bit more flexible for staff to make some administrative decisions that I think would be helpful for our customers. So under the new ordinance, what we've done is, we've added more land uses, obviously, to the parking requirements. We still have the minimum requirements, and what's very popular in most communities throughout the country is that there's maximum requirements. We've added those to the code as well. In some situations, we haven't added them where it doesn't make sense. But basically, we now have minimums and maximums incorporated into our parking requirements. So you have a bare minimum that you have to meet, or you cannot go beyond a certain number. If you go to the next slide, another tool in here that wasn't in the previous ordinance is alternative parking methods through deviations. It gives planning and engineering department staff, both of us, we both have to approve this. We can grant a 20% deviation below the minimum or above the maximum parking requirement. So we feel like the applicant submits a request to maybe wait, let's say, for example, they were required to put 100 parking spaces in, and they came to us and they said, we think we can do it with 80. We have the ability to grant a 20% a deviation from this. If it's beyond 20%, it has to come to the Planning Commission for a variance. Transportation demand management. There is another tool in here that we've added that if a business is going to use van pools, carpooling, park and ride facilities, or they're going to have an excessive amount of bicycle parking, they could reduce some of their parking requirements if they're going to prove to us that they're going to maintain a way to help reduce traffic and not need the required parking that's going to be placed upon them. We also have demonstrated parking, which I believe is in our current ordinance now. I don't think we made much changes here. I wanted to make this very clear to you, though, that with demonstrated parking, if an applicant thinks that they can build their parking to a lower amount than what we would require, they can keep. Let's say, for example, they wanted to on 100 parking space requirement. Let's say they thought they can do 50. They would have to keep the other 50 spaces open on bare ground. They couldn't build on it. And if there were no parking issues, we wouldn't make them pave the other 50 spaces. So there's another tool that we have as staff to be able to evaluate and maybe give a little bit of flexibility where it's needed on some of these matters. Next slide. Telecommunication facilities, I already spoke about that a little bit earlier. Fortunately, our consultant had just updated the zoning ordinance for the city of Killdeer, and basically we took their requirements and inserted them into our code, just changed Killdeer to Minot. And of course, it was helpful to have the Air Force Base personnel plus the Minot Airport personnel attending. They did add a couple of provisions in there about FAA standards that I thought were very helpful, and I appreciate their cooperation and their input. The sign ordinance changed that quite a bit as well. The problem we've had with our sign ordinance is we've had some interpretation problems with it in the past. We tried to make it a little bit easier to understand. One thing I want to let everyone know is that we invited all the sign companies in the city, and even one drove up from Bismarck and participated in all of our meetings, and they provided some excellent input for us. Since none of us really are total experts at signs, they were very helpful with the input that they have provided. But this is what the current ordinance looks like. And then if you flip to the next slide, the new ordinance, basically it shows the districts where these different types of signs would be permitted. Obviously, most of them would be permitted in the commercial and industrial districts, and not very many would be allowed in the ag and residential districts. We want to keep the signs where they belong in the commercial neighborhoods. Next slide. We've also added a master sign plan to the ordinance where staff can review a sign plan for a site, a large site, maybe like a big box retail site or another commercial site that requires multiple signs. And many of these signs would be like wayfinding signs. When you pull into the parking lot, they tell you where to go for the drive-through and so on. So we also added a master sign provision to the ordinance. It's something that was not in the previous ordinance. General standards, they didn't change a whole lot. We changed the formatting, though, quite a bit and made it easier to understand. We did make some updates, but I don't recall making a whole lot of changes here. These are the standards we require for all development. So for example, the Tractor Supply Company case tonight, those kind of standards you would find in this chapter right here. And specific standards as well, that goes another step further. Basically a lot of reformatting here and some updates as well. And then current procedural standards. So under the current ordinance, the Planning Commission has the ability to approve variances, and then all other cases that come before this commission are only recommendations that are forwarded to the City Council. Under the new ordinance, the committee has decided to allow the commission to make decisions on conditional use permits and interim use permits. And then those decisions obviously, can you go back, please? So those decisions, just like variances, are still appealable to the City Council. Very rarely do we have situations where people come in and object to CUPs. Like tonight, we had a CUP and nobody objected to it. So maybe it could help speed up the process a little bit more, but it's still, the public, if the public is opposed to a CUP, they can still appeal and present their grievance to the City Council. The City Council will then make the final decision. Another procedural change that we've decided on was expanding our notification area outside of city limits in the 2 mile. Right now, citywide, we have a 300-foot buffer area where we notify all property owners of a rezone, conditional use permit, et cetera, all the land use cases that we process in the planning department. We've decided to expand that buffer area to 600 feet in the 2 mile. Since the lot sizes in the 2 mile are bigger than what you would typically find in the city limits, we think that the notification area should be bigger too. So we've doubled the size of it from 300 feet to 600 feet. The plat that's on this that's on the screen is Galusha Ranch, is the case we had decided earlier this evening, and the notification boundary that we actually sent letters out to is shown in purple, and then under this proposed change, it would expand onto the green area. So we would actually, 16 property owners were notified. This would expand it up to 27 property owners in this particular case. Commercial additions, we did find a loophole we wanted to get cleared up. Landscaping and design improvements previously did not apply to the entirety of the site if a secondary or accessory building was constructed. Site expansion, whether by addition or existing primary structure, by adding a secondary or accessory structure, are now the same. So now it doesn't matter if you want to do building addition or build a second building, you still have to follow all the landscaping and design requirements. Beforehand, you didn't have to do that if you built a secondary building. Residential accessory structures, this would be helpful for those who live in the 2 mile of the around city limits, the 2 mile jurisdiction. Our current code calls for a 1,200 square foot maximum area for accessory structures. We're going to remove that, and we're going to allow 5% of the total lot area or the size of the house measured by the footprint of the building, whichever is greater. So basically, most people in the city probably would the size of the footprint of their home would probably be the maximum size allowed for an accessory dwelling. Out in the 2 mile, they probably would be mostly using the 5%. So if you had a property that was zoned RA and it had it was 2 acres in size, they can build up to like 4,300 square feet of accessory buildings now, where before they can only build up to 1,200 square feet. We're changing the name of 3 of our zoning districts. The RA district is going to go to RR. It's going to be called Rural Residential District. The C3 Central Business District is going to be renamed to CBD, the Central Business District. And M3 Office Park District is just going to be OP, since it's really, M is a manufacturing. There really isn't a lot of manufacturing in an office park, so we decided to change it from an M3 to an OP. And then some of the minor changes we made. We didn't really change much of our height, area, and lot size standards. We tweaked them in a couple of areas, but for the most part, our building heights, our lot coverages, our maximum yard setbacks, front, rear, and side yard setbacks have not changed, along with the lot dimensions and lot areas. They mostly stayed the same, but we did make a couple of minor changes there. And landscaping, we really didn't touch a whole lot on landscaping. That chapter was written about 3 years ago, so we just made a couple of minor changes in that chapter, but we didn't really make a whole lot of changes there. Floodplain, stormwater, and wellhead protection articles were all updated. They were handled by our engineering staff, and they're here this evening if you have any questions on those chapters and articles. But I wouldn't say that a bunch of changes were made there. They just updated those requirements. The subdivision process, that's one thing that we did not change, and we will change it. That's going to be our next project once the zoning ordinance is adopted. We're going to then focus on revising our subdivision ordinance. We're not just going to update it, we're going to rewrite the entire ordinance. It's probably going to take a few months. I'm hoping it'll be ready for public hearing by the end of the year, if not sooner. And then the findings of fact. Obviously, we've submitted the application, and that the zoning ordinance steering committee consists of city staff and members of the public. They're appointed by the mayor and city council. We've had 38 meetings since March of 2019. We did take a 4-month break due to COVID. Our original plan was to have this ready for adoption in November, but thanks to COVID, when the city was shut down, we shut down all of our meetings other than the planning commission and city council. The meetings were facilitated by a consulting group that has expertise and experience in developing comprehensive plans and zoning ordinances. The meetings were posted. All of our meetings were posted on our website. They were posted here in City Hall. The public was invited to attend. We had public participation at many of our meetings. We also invited industry specialists in to give their input as well. And that the planning commission has the authority to hear this case and make a recommendation to the city council. I want to thank everyone for the work they've done on this project over the last 2 years. It's a very big project, and I'm proud of the work that we've done, and I ask for your approval this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for staff on the report? All right. Well, we do have to open a public hearing. So is there anybody who wishes to speak in regards to this item, either for or against?
Good evening, Planning Commission members. My name is Raleigh Ackerman. I co-chaired this steering committee with the help of many people and people that were in different professions. That really was a excellent thing. One thing that we did we're very concerned about was protecting the property rights of previous zoning zones that were in effect years ago. That was a pretty important thing and led to a lot of debate. A lot of comments, and we're proud that we did that. The other thing that was real important to us was making the application and the approval process more efficient. I think with the help of staff and Mr. Billingsley, we certainly improved that immensely. It was always the intent of city staff and also our aldermen and so on was to be able to be more user-friendly to the people that want to come and develop in Minot. And with this process, just keep in mind that this is a living document. You'll have changes throughout eternity with even during the process. We talked about medical marijuana, methadone clinics, all the different things that are changing in our world today will become part of this document in the future as well. So there again, We've still got more work to do. We got to talk about the underlining and overlaying areas at Minot State Campus. Commissioner Ballman, I thought I better mention that if you're still on. And,
Thanks, Raleigh.
yes, and obviously there's still work to do. So thank you very much. And if you got any comments, obviously we'll submit those to Mr. Billingsley, and the steering committee could meet again. And I'd certainly encourage you to adopt this ordinance. I think I have the opportunity to work in many different localities throughout the state, and this document, I can tell you, Minot can be proud of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Riley. Any further comments from the audience? All right, we'll close the public hearing then, turn it over to the commission. Is there a
Motion to approve, based
Motion
on
by
staff.
Commissioner Wagoness to approve.
And recommend approval to the city council.
And recommend, thank you, recommend approval to the city council. Is there a second?
Commissioner Bauman, second.
Second from Commissioner Bauman. Any discussion?
Commissioner Bauman again. I am just going to take a moment to publicly thank Brian Billingsley for his steady hand leading this project. He didn't get a chance to thank himself because that's awkward, but Brian, you really did a great job with all of this. It's been a pleasure to work with you and the team that you assembled, and you did a great job, I think, building consensus across multiple different interests. So kudos to you, and thanks so much for your efforts on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Bauman.
Thank you.
Anything further? All right, we'll call the roll then.
Barnett,
Yes.
Bauman,
Yes.
Demakis,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Nestle,
Yes.
Alfredal,
Yes.
and Wagonist.
Yes.
All right.
Motion carries. Last item on the list is other business. Mr. Van Dyke, is there any other business? Sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Brown.
Yep. Sorry, I just wanted to ask the city staff. I received an email from a resident in Northwest Minot who had some questions related to residential wind energy generation, in particular rooftop wind turbines. I brought it to staff just to kind of see if they had any clarifications. So I think at this point, I'd like to formally ask our planning staff if possible, it would be great to have you take a look at feasibility of rooftop wind generation here in town.
Thank you, Commissioner Bauman.
We can certainly discuss that at our next zoning ordinance steering committee after the subdivision ordinance is adopted.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. John, anything further?
Yep, there's just one more item under other business, and then we've got to have a motion to approve the minutes, and then also the intro to decorum was also on the agenda. So we can breeze through those, but let me just plug
Forgot about
our
the minutes.
So there's some North Dakota Planning Association training related to nonconformities. So for planning commissioners, I wanted to provide this to you. If you go to ndplanning.org and scroll down, you'll be able to find this. It's on the homepage there. So ndplanning.org, just giving it a plug. It may be beneficial. So if you have the time, by all means, attend.
Very good. All right, thanks. Sorry I missed approval of the previous meeting's minutes, so we need a motion to approve last month's meeting minutes.
Barnett moved to approve last meeting's minutes.
Motion by Commissioner Barnett. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Sessions. Any discussion? Okay, call the roll, please.
Barnett,
Yes.
Bauman,
Yes.
Demakis,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Nestle,
Yes.
Alfredal,
Yes.
and Wagonist.
Yes.
All right.
All right. we went over the kind of general purpose decorum thing at the last meeting. I don't think we need to rehash that. So I will adjourn this meeting. Thanks.